Seattle Interactive Conference, Design Swarms.
Hi, I'm Brian Rauschenbach with the Seattle Interactive Conference. We're in our 5th year this year, and we wanted to sort of bring something to the event that was an interactive experience. We sort of layered on top of that a regional issue that we're dealing with here. We had the mayor announce this week that there was a state of emergency in Seattle around homelessness. We partnered up with Mary's Place to piggyback off a campaign that they're running right now around No Child Sleeps Outside. So the Design Swarm really helped us develop an interactive storyboard here on site over 2 days with teams from our region, and some teams came as far up from Portland to participate.
So what is really happening here that I want you to take away? Our world is being transformed. Our world is being transformed by hackers, makers, tinkerers, inventors. Old ways of design are shifting, right? And today I want you to adopt that mindset that you are going to take on transforming some of the challenges of Seattle. Design swarms are really a combination that brings together the agility of hackathons and the empathy of design thinking together into one agile framework. And design swarms are a way to take on these very wicked problems by bringing a group together of people who have complementary skills in design, in technology, in business, and to be able to move them through a series of sprints to be able to solve this problem using their superpowers.
I participated in a design swarm at the Seattle Interactive Conference 2015, and my superpowers are graphic design and illustration.
Within our group, my superpowers were strategy, obviously, and storytelling.
And the wonderful thing about the design swarms is it brings in this collision of superpowers. Everyone has something to bring to the table, collide with something else, have it build on itself, mutate, and really solve these wicked problems that are facing us today. And hopefully we can keep this going and get more and more people to come together and swarm together to help solve these problems.
And in the other hexagon, I want all of you to give yourself a team name. And the last one, you are here to solve a really hard problem of helping our city be a city that doesn't have an issue of homelessness. So I want you to give yourself a slogan. What is the aspiration of your team? All right? So 10 minutes to do that. Go.
The urgency of this challenge, not just in the announcement the other day, but it's something that we as Seattleites have been witnessing for a while, and the ability to kind of jump in and not necessarily be hired by anybody to take on this challenge, but to do it and know that you can bring skills to the table that could have some positive impact in the community is something that's very, very fulfilling, I think, for a lot of the people that worked here today.
At this point, I would like to invite Marty, who is the executive director of Mary's Place, to come here and tell us about what fabulous, fabulous Mary's Place does.
So we want to explain a little bit about Mary's Place. Mary's Place exists to answer some pretty tough questions that kids may ask their moms. Questions that may be easy for some of us to answer, but a homeless mom, it becomes a challenge. Mom, when are we going home? Dad, I don't feel so good. Where can I lie down? It's cold. Mom, can we go inside? Dad, will the school bus find us in our car? At Mary's Place, we work to answer some of those questions. If you don't know, there are 500 families sleeping outside tonight. Not enough shelter beds to bring them all inside. But to understand a little bit more about Mary's Place, you have to understand the women that we serve. The moms, the single women, the senior women. They are women that are just like you and I. And they face challenges like you and I.
It was very interactive. They kept going back to, we had our experts. We had women who have been through homelessness, who are living through homelessness, here to answer questions, and they weren't afraid to go and ask them questions. They kept going back and saying, okay, now what about this, and how does this work? So it wasn't about taking their ideas and running with it. It was, it was a lot of working together in partnership and listening to the experts.
I can't even talk about how many times someone has lost their ID, and I'm like, all right, so you have to go find your high school transcripts.
Another critical part of the process is to bring people who have certain talents and capabilities, but also to bring together people, stakeholders, to become part of the team, right? Who bring real experience. In this particular experience, we've had folks who have actually gone through the experience of being homeless, who actually go in and out of these teams. And what it offers for the teams is a kind of a grounding on ideas, and then slowly we actually get the people who are untrained designers, in this case the homeless folks, to also start thinking in designerly ways, right? This represents in some ways the shift that we're going in design, where it is from designing for to designing with to designing by, right? So design swarms are really an example of design processes of design by people, facilitated by experts, right? Facilitated by folks who may have deep understanding of technology, business, or design, taking part in the process.
So early on, we had to think about how we were going to accomplish the challenge that we had in front of us. Early on, through this Design Swarm challenge, you can see all these blue Post-it notes that are back behind us were a way for us to make sure that we're getting enough ideas and enough content out to steamroll good events, or good ideas to make sure that we had something good. But right across the tables from us were so many representatives from Mary's house. So as soon as we ran through a small stack of Post-it notes each, we went right to the client and started doing client interviews. They were so forthcoming and ready to share their challenges. They made it really easy for us to really identify what kind of impacts we could have. And then we continued to go back to them to get more and more bits of information and validation. It was a great process.
You have to have a kid. Don't go to a shelter, not a family shelter. Okay, so we don't do single women. You have that here, same-sex families and married.
Look at the process folks have gone through. You know, look at the design swarm canvases. And they went from understanding who they were. This is where they understood their superpowers. They created a mission for themselves. They created a name for a team. Then, in a very short amount of time, they created over 50 ideas, which you can see over here. And then they moved from that, those 50 ideas, and pulling together the approximately 500 or 600 ideas in the room together into 5 directions, 5 promising directions. And from those, they built what is really a system diagram, which is a core idea and all the features and capabilities around that idea. And so there, that is the description. And then they did one more flip. They again got feedback. And look at this. This is beautiful. This is where now they convert that into a user story full of empathy and emotion about the real life of a real human being interacting with the solution they've proposed. And so this is one, and then 9 of these all around the room, which is fantastic. Look at that.
I think it was fantastic to actually engage in an activity like a design swarm at an interactive conference, because too often you're kind of being passive and sitting and listening to speakers, and this design swarm really allowed for an opportunity to delve into an interactive design process in a great environment with great people.
I haven't done a pitch quite like this before.
Yeah, the 20 by 20?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, yeah. Yeah, the format, so it's interesting. They have 20 slides, 20 seconds per slide, so it's on a timer. They've got to be clear about every one of those slides. Why does slide 1 go to 2, go to 3, to get that narrative arc to bring that idea to life. So I think what your challenge will be, and I think you've got it, but what I would do is you got to lead with the insight that you've hit on. So I wouldn't bury the lead. How's this coming along? So what I'm trying to do is coach out really what's the heart of their story. These guys have been working on it. They have so much up here. They only have 5 minutes to convey everything that they need to get across. And so that's what that's the end of this.
And just to remind you what the judges are going to be judging, all the results are on 3 criteria. And the criteria is, one is how innovative, how creative is your solution. The second one is how doable is it, right? Does it appear reasonably doable? And the last one is what impact will it have, right? That is the 3 areas right? Which is that are going to be looked at.
You know, like this spreads throughout the entire community. Everybody has an ability to give a hand, and through this unified piece that the homeless would be able to access through these public totem poles, as we suggest, they'd be able to have that information right at their fingertips. And the louder this community speaks, the more this conversation is heard.
So we have a really quick sketch here just to kind of show there's a number of things we want to do with this. This could be a kiosk at the front of a Mary's Place. This could be through a web portal that they access at the library, really anywhere. But we want to be able to provide these things. So we've taken our whole concept and summed it up into a single phrase, I suppose we could call it, or mission statement. And that says, eliminating barriers and providing opportunities for people to take their next step. And the key to that is, like I said, not telling them what to do, but opening the appropriate doors and helping close some other doors, hoping that they can make the appropriate decisions for themselves.
So we thought, okay, can we just tell those stories? Can we come at this at a different angle? Can we humanize the problem? Can we raise awareness? And we came up with a concept of a site, Fight Through the Fog, which would basically be just posts focusing on long-form stories of each success story from a shelter like Mary's Place. And then the second CTA would probably be, can you reach out to this person to receive mentorship? So if we are looking at the user that would be the homeless woman, maybe at the library, would she would have the ability to follow that link and contact that mentor directly. Because one of the things we did here is that these women love to tell their stories. They like to share them. They would love to actually kind of guide someone else through the process of how they could also be a similar success.
So we were delighted to find that there's some tools out there immediately accessible. So before the event closed yesterday, we had a working shared document that I have shared with the director of Mary's Place. So it was ready to go to actually work the process to get people in beds tonight.
But we wanted to take it further. We wanted to have something that we could use to give back to the community, hand off to other people to continue with or continue with ourselves. So we started with a mock-up, which would be a usable application you could access on your phone that is kind of more visually appealing than a spreadsheet. The main thing we found was you need to search for the criteria of the shelter that's accepting you. So the main thing when you enter the first home screen would be a checklist where you could go through and check different criteria that appeal to you. So for example, youth shelters, transgender acceptance shelters, so on and so forth. And then you would have a list of shelters would come up that accept you. So you'd have the name, who it accepts. You would have a call to confirm. Let me go to the next one. You'd have the number of beds available because that is the number one thing you need to know. How many beds instantly updated straight away. And then you would learn different amenities that those shelters provided and you could click to learn more. So do they have diapers? Do they have showers, lockers for your goods and parking and that sort of thing?
The challenge that we were given was how do we create a consumer journey that helps them on that road to empowerment. Specifically, those steps are empowering themselves, finding stability, mending the issues that they're facing in their life, and ultimately restarting. And this is something that we know is what Mary's Place is designed to do, and they do it really well. They have the expertise, particularly in mending issues and helping consult. So we didn't want to really have to take over that process, but where could we be additive and incremental? And after talking to a lot of people from Mary's Place, one of the big realizations that we came to was that when you lose your home, you lose much more than just a roof over your head. It's not just the shelter that you lose, but you lose security and control, particularly over those physical things in your life that make you who you are. In particular, and as we had heard from these ladies, those things are documentation, government-issued IDs, healthcare info, all that sort of thing. And particularly, there's a lot of stigma around having lost your address or a contact phone number. No one's really addressed the fact that when you're homeless, all of this stuff ends up in a bag on your back. And if you lose it, it's very, very hard to take those steps to move forward and get back into being back on your feet because you need a government identification to get an apartment, to get a job, different things like that. So our design thinking approached how can we really help people solve that issue? And that came to this idea of creating essentially a virtual safeguard for people's identity that we're essentially calling Identity Haven right now. Working with community partners like Mary's Place as well as other corporate sponsors that would have brick and mortar locations. We would encourage people who are homeless to come in and have an uptake inventory meeting with people and have the documents that they have uploaded to this platform so that they're in a place where they're saved, they're secure, and they can be accessed at any time.
And just as important is strong and powerful messaging. We wanted a headline that's short and memorable, which is why we chose the number 500, which represents the 500 families sleeping on our streets who each have their own stories.
So in this example, Joe is making his way back home from work, and he may be listening to a podcast by KUOW where they're running a segment just featuring stories of other homeless people that are in the area, and he actually has his perception shifted a little bit and learns that they're doing community events around the city where they're bringing the homeless community together with folks with more resources. So Joe's curious, and he decides to check it out. So in his neighborhood of Ballard, he passes by the local coffee shop, sees that they're supportive of the 500 movement, and they're bringing together the community for one night to host a dinner, potentially provided by Fair Start, where people can share stories, they can kind of get together and decide how they can make an impact.
Our whole vision when we had gone into this was designing for hope. So how do we give people the hope to maintain that momentum moving forward as they get back on their feet and not have to deal with the logistics of, I don't have the right paperwork to be able to do this or this. So we feel this removes a huge barrier and empowers them to feel not only that they're in control of their identity, but that they can focus their efforts on the things that really matter to getting back to where they were before.
All right, great. Thank you, folks. Great job.
Okay, now the time we've all been waiting for. So if we can get everyone to gather up here, we're going to make the announcement of the winners. But in fact, I think we're all winners. And hopefully Mary's Place is the biggest winner. And so everyone make their way up here.
Judges have deliberated and are happy to announce that Pop and Matt is the winner of the SIC 2015 Design Challenge. Congratulations. Congratulations. The judges had an incredibly hard time to decide because all the entries were extremely close on all three criteria: innovation, feasibility, and impact. In addition to the grand prize winner, the judges also felt that there were a couple of entries that showed exceptional promise. AKQA had the interactive totems that have the potential for civic impact and scalability. The UW Home Leads entry was also extremely feasible and could make an immediate difference. We thought both of these are projects that can be immediately implemented. Having said that, we believe that all of the finalists, without exception, have extremely high potential, and we'll be working to try to figure out how we can actually move these into reality. Thank you very much, and congratulations, everybody. Well done. So once again, thank you very much for your work. It's been fantastic. I do want to offer the last word back to Mary's Place. And if you folks have any thoughts on it.
I just want to say this is amazing. If you notice, we were tearing up as we walked by. You get it. You get that there's a problem, but you also get that there's a solution, and the solution is community. And so we're excited to see some of these ideas kind of move forward into the next phase, and just thank you so much for letting us be a part.